Oh, we got an update here on Crystalia, a little short one because no one really mentions Crystalia's name anymore. He's sort of like the what was he? The Boogeyman, right? Or whatever that what was that horror film where you can't repeat the person's name? Whatever it is, that he is that person. They do not utter his name in any way, shape, or form. Which again, considering the allegations other comedians have hovering against over their heads, Chris D'Elia's crimes are relatively tame if you really get to the meat and bones of the accusations, right? It's him just being a dog, trying to holler at everything that moves in every state that he visits when he's on tour. Maybe he slipped up and didn't check the DOBs of some of the profiles that he was messaging and just generally got excited, whatever it may be. And if you remember his quote, like his statement is like, oh, he let the lifestyle get the best to take over him or whatever, right? That is essentially what happened. And that's basically it. I think he's also maybe guilty of being a bit of a dick. I think from some of the accounts you read of some of the girls, he's not really the best of company when he knows what he wants from said individual, allegedly. He doesn't necessarily go out his way to make it a fun evening. Let that be said in that regard. And again, are these crimes? Not really. Is it a bit of a dickhead? Yeah. Would you recommend him to your sister or to your best mate? Probably not. But it's probably not enough to cancel his career. But I understand in his position, especially considering his image and the fact that he's teetotal and he seems pretty normal, and to suddenly have this weird, not weird, but to suddenly have your fetishes and your behind closed doors desires and everything laid bare for the world to see, it can be really embarrassing. So it might just be more of an embarrassing thing that he's laying low, but he hasn't really said nothing since then. Been some pictures of him hanging around and shit and going shopping, whatever, but that's about it. You haven't heard much from Crystalia, and of course his friends have not really said nothing. You don't really expect much from most of them, but some of the others you expect a little bit more. And I guess one of them being Bobby Lee. But Bobby Lee's been going through a bit of a tough time himself, right? I think there was a spat where I felt like there were stories, there was old clips of Bobby Lee on what's his name, on the David Cho podcast back in the day with Asa Akira saying some wild stuff. Maybe the stories were embellished, maybe they weren't, but regardless, it felt as if there was a bit of a concentrated effort underground to kind of cancel Bobby Lee too. So I think ever since then he's been kind of on like a reputational damage tour. Kyla went on another podcast recently and said something about, oh, all Bobby Lee stories are fake. He makes them up. He's lying. Bobby Lee went around and basically tried his best to dance around some of the accusations and again make it seem as if he exaggerates stories and be self-deprecating. But he did seem he was conscious enough that the climate in the industry made it seem as if like he couldn't say anything positive or negative about Crystalia because he was afraid of any attention it might bring to stuff that he said in the past. So it comes to this clip I'm going to show you. This is the recent podcast of this past weekend with Theo Vaughn, episode number 297, where he invites Bobby Lee down. And, again, it's a fun podcast. I'm a big fan of Theo. Bobby and Theo have great chemistry. The banter is obviously amazing. Loads of good laugh out loud moments, but they have a short segment here where they touch upon, the difficulty when one of your close friends is accused of a heinous crime and, of how to kind of stand up for him and back him up. So I'll play a bit of the clip and then we can talk about it on the other side.
I get your number, this or that. You get scared of, I get scared of people like sharing that or like screen grabbing it and like, I don't know. It just feels like, people are going to use it to mess with you. I mean, even after what happened with D'Elia, like, a lot of the stuff that got shared about him.
What?
A lot of the stuff that got shared about him.
Look at Bobby's reaction when he mentioned his name. Look at his face.
People are going to use it to mess with you. I mean, even after what happened with D'Elia, like, a lot of the stuff that got shared about him.
What?
A lot of the stuff that got shared about him, none of it was illegal stuff.
Yeah.
And they just, they're like, oh, what about this 22-year-old woman that he was communicating with? And you're like, well, there's nothing, it might be there's a difference between being a dog of a man and being a pervert or a criminal perv.
What I have to say about him, because I didn't, and I don't want to get in trouble. That's the thing. I've been pretty silent about, talking about this.
Yeah, me too.
But I want to say one thing, which I'm trying to gather the words, is that the allegations are shocking, but I do have to say that he just personally, one of the nicest, generous, good guys that I've ever met in the business. You know,
And again, this is the issue that I had with the beginning with all the allegations of all these guys in LA, right? The allegations are heinous, right? They're deep, really serious allegations that need to be taken seriously. And of course, your heart goes out to victims, alleged or whatever. No one should go through what they had allegedly gone through. But I still maintain, if you're the friend of somebody like this who've gone through something, even in private, I'm obviously said it myself, I would want to get the facts from my friend in some way, shape, or form, and then make my own decision up that way, right? But even with the Crystalia stuff, when Brandon Schaub and Brian Callen went on their podcast straight away when the news came out and just started bawling in front of the camera, damage limitation, distance themselves from him straight away without even talking to the guy first. He's owed a conversation at least, even if it's one. When you're a friend with somebody, they're allowed at one conversation. If they murdered somebody, stole money, whatever, they're allowed one conversation. Then it's up to you after that conversation to decide whether or not you want to be their friend or not. In my decision, in my point of view, unless I guess the only thing would be eradicated and I would never be a friend again, would definitely be rape, would definitely be touching minors, right? That's completely done. There's no conversation to be had. But anything else outside of that, I owe you a conversation. I owe you the chance to explain yourself, and you kind of deserve that from me being a friend, right? You're meant to kind of be there for each other, in the good and the bad. So to see those guys be so quick to dismiss the allegations, especially when on paper they weren't that serious, they weren't allegations that no one could ever come back through. There is a road to redemption. There's a road to forgiveness in some way, shape, or form. There are lessons to be learned from it. Why not be okay just saying, hey, he's my friend and I support him as a friend. Of course, I don't condone what he did, but I'm going to try and be there for as much as I can, because I don't kind of let go of my friends. I don't remove them, whatever. Because think about it, Quentin Tarantino said the same thing about bloody what's his name, Harvey Weinstein, and look at what Harvey Weinstein did, right? When Harvey Weinstein was first accused, they kind of quizzed Quentin Tarantino about his relationship with Harvey, because obviously he greenlit a lot of, or some of the more successful movies that Quentin Tarantino directed, and he said quite clearly, hey, he's my friend. I don't know, I'm not familiar with the allegations. I haven't really read up on them, but I've heard they sound really serious. But please allow me some time to reflect and I'll get back to you later, right? But he maintained that, hey, this is my friend. I'm going to give them the moment or the chance to explain themselves. I'm going to read up a little bit on what's happening and I'm going to get back to you later. And then, of course, once he kind of saw the kind of severity of the accusations, he kind of, distanced himself straight away. But even he had the temerity to kind of give the guy, a chance to explain himself somewhat, because he saw him as a friend. He didn't know the other side of him. Same could be applied to Crystalia and stuff. That's the only thing that's a bit annoying about it, really. And again, in Bobby Lee's case too, to be fair to him as well, he's been quite open about how much of a, not even a bad way, but he's a bit of a pussy in that regard. Because he's kind of like Callan in that way. He's been so mistreated by the industry. He's got some of the most cringy, embarrassing stories about auditions. I remember once him mentioning something about him dressing up as a ninja for an audition. Like, he's been treated like dog shit in the industry, right? He's been through a lot. So he's suddenly now got success. His podcast is popping. He's got, obviously because of the fame of his podcast, that's allowed him to leverage that to get more acting gigs and stuff. And he's been able to rebuild his reputation in the industry. I understand that he's a bit afraid to kind of talk about it, because he doesn't want to ruin the thing that he has now, especially he's in his 50s now or something. Even though he looks great for his age, he doesn't want to ruin it now. I get it, but I don't know, man. Part of me still thinks like, doesn't your friend is owed a bit of public support when he's getting trashed online so much? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Him and his family have only been, even when I was struggling and stuff, the sweetest people, and he's only been the sweetest guy.
So imagine how you feel if you're Kristen. You've opened your doors to your home to him. Your family, your mum and dad love him like a son, and then he doesn't say anything about you in public or back you up. It must sting, innit? It must sting. But again, I guess it's LA, innit?
I've not said that out loud, and because we live in a world where you get this fear that, like, am I going to get canceled too, and whatnot. But I've been also thinking about, why can't I say that?
Yeah.
Why can't I say, that
because you're a coward, basically. It's not a bad thing to say, but it is. You're a coward. When you wrap up all your value within an industry, that determines when and when you can get paid, when and when you can work, who you can work with, you're going to do whatever you can to stay within their good books. Again, it's not a slight. I just think there are parallels to this. He is kind of like a Callan in that decision, in that way. I think Callan would have done the same thing. If Callan didn't get any allegations against him, he wouldn't have mentioned Crystalia ever again, because he's, of course, as well, somebody who only made it late in life due to the success of his podcast, which, again, the same, because, Bobby Lee was mentioned that Kalila was the reason why Tiger Belly popped off the way it did. Brendan Shaw was the reason why, the Fire and the Kid popped off the way it was. So I'm sure they both deep down know that they've only got this chance because of the people that they've kind of passed by in their life and they met at the right time, and they don't want to fuck it up, right? Because they know how bad it can get for them. So I understand the reluctance to speak up, but it's nothing more than just being a coward recently, really. That's basically what it's all about.
Crystalia is just one of the nicest guys I've ever met personally in my life. I've never seen him do all the things that he's been accused of doing. I'm also I'm on the side of always the victims. I feel if people have been victimized. But that's not what I'm saying right now. All I'm saying is that, that's the thing that I've been scared to say, because I don't want people to think that I'm defending him. Mm-hmm. I'm not. I'm just saying that, that's what I know of him, that he's just being a good guy. Do you have the same experience?
I mean, Chris has been super nice to me. I mean, helpful with work. You and him are closer.
Yeah.
Because y'all have more of a history together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
it's just so uncomfortable to say that, because it's like,
yeah, and it shouldn't be. But it shouldn't mean just because we talk about someone that it means like we don't support somebody, that if somebody was taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't support the behavior, right? That's the behavior. If someone's victimized, I'm on their fucking side. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that why can't I say too, that he is, just my opinion about him, it's like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
When people are more than one thing, people are
like I said before, people are complex creatures,
totally.
Right? It's like when people who's that guy?
Huh? He's not here live, but he is a human.
And no, I want to add one last thing. It's like the same thing as I feel about Carlos Mencia, right? And what he went through. It's like, I was his opening act when all that shit went down.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What'd you do? Did you speak up, or did you not say anything?
I fucking cut ties and I fucking ran like a guy.
Wow, do you feel bad about that now or no?
There is parts of me that feel bad, but
there we go, and that's the evidence, and I guess that maybe explains why he's so uncomfortable around Joe Rogan, because I think everyone's always clamoring, oh, why isn't Bobby Lee going on Joe Rogan Experience? And he's always kind of making excuses, and I think Joe even told him once at the comedy store, hey, you should come and do the show, and he doesn't want to follow up on it because he's weird about calling people and texting him and asking for things. But I think fundamentally he does feel a little bit like a fraud, and he probably does feel like deep down they still look at Bobby Lee with a side eye because he was so close to Carlos Mencia. Of course, Carlos Mencia, if you know the law, he was the comedian who Joe Rogan sort of accosted on stage because he had been stealing jokes from a group of comedians at the comedy store, people like Irish Free and others. And he do this really fucked up thing where he'd watch them do their joke and then come up later on when he has his prime slot and do the joke on stage, or just do his flip of the joke and then kind of feign ignorance. And of course, Bobby Lee being, somebody that kind of toured on him on the road with him, he was, a close ally, close friend. And he essentially decided to cut ties with him as soon as, the comedy store turned on Carlos Mencia. And at that time, Carlos Mencia had a lot more clout in the comedy store than Joe Rogan did. He was like the main guy. So for Joe Rogan to even do that in the first place was a big thing. It was a big deal at the time. And I think the video, it's out there. It's probably one of the most watched ones of Joe Rogan stuff outside of the stuff he did on Fear Factory and stuff beforehand. But Bobby Lee's got kind of some previous history of kind of being a bit of a coward and not backing up his friends. Maybe in the Carlos Mencia thing, it's a bit difficult. It's a bit harsh to say that because, he's at the infancy of his career. He probably did bet on the right horse in the long term, right? Staying sweet with the LA sort of like comedy crew was probably a better idea than kind of siding with Carlos Mencia, right? It made sense, but if you're his friend still, you'd probably you owe your friends that loyalty. That's all you owe them. Loyalty, loyalty, loyalty. And there's a part of me still that thinks, not regardless, there are crimes, of course, like I said, touching up kids, raping people, you should be excommunicated. But apart from that, you should just stick with your friends, man. I don't know where it is. Again, I don't have many friends. I'm not the most sociable guy in the world, but I think if you have friends that you've known for years, you've developed bonds with, you've got to know them over the year, you owe them that. Especially if you want to see them get better, you owe them just to kind of be around and help them to kind of become a better person. Even for the next friend, right? That's what you want to do. You don't just completely cut people out of your life because they make a mistake or something. That's not how the world works. We all make mistakes. We all fuck up and do crazy stuff. But the only way we're going to learn is if the people next to us can kind of pull us up on it in some way, shape or form. But again, I won't play the whole clip because it's a bit long, but definitely check it out. The whole episode is really good. Bobby Lee and Theo Vaughn talking about everything with Crystalia. And again, let me know your thoughts, man. Do you understand where Bobby Lee's coming from? Do you think he is a coward, like I'm saying? Again, I'm not saying it to be rude because I'm a fan of his. I love Tiger Bay. I love what they do, but it is what it is, isn't it? He didn't stand up for any of his friends. He probably would never stand up for his friends because he always cares about his career. It's funny because, that is just how he is. And again, like I said, he's had some really terrible experiences in Hollywood, so I completely understand his risk aversion and him wanting to kind of make sure he doesn't lose whatever he has at the moment, because he generally is probably cognitively aware that if he does get cancelled, now it's over. He can't restart his career again, right? He just hasn't got it in him. They don't call him the Slep King for nothing. But yeah, let me know what you think, man, of that. What Bobby Lee has to say. And is there actually a road for redemption for Crystalia? Can he actually come back? Again, he's probably gonna back the right way in terms of just laying low, not doing a Brian Callen, but can he ever come back and have another career? Can he ever come back and restart his career, or is it completely over for him? And if he can, how is he going to do that? Let me know in the comments.